Have you ever wondered why you were in this world? Is there a greater purpose than what you are going through every day? Have you ever felt like you're walking on an uncertain path, not knowing where is the real destination? A lot of people live without understanding their purpose. They try to find the meaning of life in work, fame, or relationships. But in the end, I still felt empty. If you also have those thoughts, then you are not alone. Imagine a moment you stand in the middle of a dark room, without a clear way. You struggled to search for light, but only saw the darkness covered. It may be the feeling that many people are experiencing in life. A vague uncertainty, not knowing where to go and what to do. But the great thing is, there is a hand ready to lead you. A promise has been written for thousands of generations. Before I created you in my mother's heart, I knew you, Jeremiah 1 verse 5. You are not a coincidence. You are not anonymous in the middle of life. You are created for a purpose. No one in this world can replace your position in the Lord's plan. But how to know that purpose? How to get rid of the whirlpool of suspicion, anxiety, and feeling lost? The answer is not in the success or recognition of people, which lies in listening to the call from the Creator of you. Before entering the journey to discover the true meaning of life, stop a little. Ponder the things you are about to hear. And share this with those around you. Because someone out there is also in need of access to the truth you are about to explore. Please register, share, and together on a life-change journey. God knew you before you were born. God doesn't create anyone randomly. He has a plan for each of us, even before we are born. Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, before you were born I predestined you for a purpose, Jeremiah 1 verse 5. This means that you are not a product of chance. You were created for a specific purpose, and God knew you even before you came into this world. But the thing is, most people don't realize it. They don't see their purpose because their fears, doubts, and constant comparisons to others blind them. In a world where people measure their worth based on their achievements, social status, bank balance, or social media likes, it's easy to feel like you're not good enough, not important enough. People are constantly asking themselves, am I really worth anything? Does my life have any meaning? And when these questions don't have clear answers, they fall into doubt, even despair. But the truth is, God doesn't see you the way the world sees you. He doesn't look at your bank account, count your degrees, or compare you to anyone else. He sees your soul, the things you don't dare admit even to yourself. He didn't choose you because you're perfect, but because He can do extraordinary things through your imperfections. So why do some people go through life never discovering their purpose? Because they are so busy chasing after the values the world has set for them that they don't stop to listen to God's call. Think of a moment in your life when you felt empty, when you felt like you were trying but it was never enough. That's not a sign that you failed. It's a reminder that you're looking for meaning in the wrong places. Instead of listening to your inner calling, you're caught up in a cycle of comparison, of man-made standards that can never satisfy you. But God didn't create you to live in that confusion. He created you with a specific purpose and plan. And to understand that, look at the lives of people in the Bible who felt lost, but then God changed them in ways they couldn't imagine. David was just a shepherd boy, no one thought he could become king. Jonah ran away from the mission God gave him, but God still brought him back on track. Paul persecuted Christians, but he became one of the greatest missionaries of all time. You may think your life is nothing special, but remember that God doesn't create ordinary people. He doesn't look at what you've done, He looks at what you can become. But the question is, do you dare to believe it? Are you willing to listen to God's call and walk in His plan? Or will you continue to let fear and doubt hold you back? When you start to wonder about your purpose, remember that you don't have to have all the answers right away. God doesn't expect you to understand everything. He only asks you to trust and follow His guidance. Look at Moses, one of those people who thought his life was over, but God saw a different future for him. Imagine you are Moses. You were born into harsh circumstances, when your entire nation was oppressed and forced into slavery. You had no choice in where you were born, no choice in your fate. But a miracle happened. Your mother put you in a basket and set you adrift on a river, leaving your fate in the hands of God. And then the unexpected happened. You were found and raised by Pharaoh's own daughter, and grew up as a prince in the Egyptian palace. A child who should have died, now has everything in his hands: power, wealth, a top-notch education. But even with all that, you still feel lost. Who are you? Are you an Egyptian or a Hebrew? Which do you belong to? That question never left Moses' mind. He saw his people beaten, enslaved, treated like trash. And one day, when he couldn't take it anymore, he killed an Egyptian to protect a Hebrew. He thought he was doing the right thing, but no one recognized him. No one stood by him. He became a hunted man, forced to flee from everything he knew, only to wander the desert for 40 years. Imagine that. A man who had everything, now with nothing. A prince who lived in a palace, now a nameless shepherd in the desert. Can you feel his despair? Can you imagine what he must have been thinking as he looked up at the night sky, wondering if God really had a plan for him? Moses probably thought his life was over. That his mistake had ruined everything. That he would die a nobody, remembered by no one. But God had other plans. Just when Moses thought he was worthless, God appeared. One day, as usual, he was tending his sheep when he saw something strange, a bush that was on fire, but not consumed. It was more than just a strange sight, it was a sign from God. As Moses approached, he heard a voice calling, "Moses, Moses." And he answered, "Here I am." Exodus 3 verse 4. This moment was more than just an encounter. It was a moment that changed his entire life. But when God told him that he had chosen Moses to deliver the Israelites from Egypt, Moses' first reaction was not obedience, but fear. Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and lead the Israelites out of Egypt? Exodus 3 verse 11. He did not believe he was capable. He didn't believe he could do something so great. But God doesn't need a perfect person. He doesn't choose the best, he chooses those who believe. And God said something important. "I will be with you," Exodus 3 verse 12. That's what a lot of people need to hear. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be perfect. All you need to know is this: God will be with you. And when you believe that, you'll see that the impossible becomes possible. How many times did you tell yourself that you are not good enough to do something? How many times have you put fears and past failures that prevent you from entering the purpose you are really created to implement? This is not only your own story, but also the story of many people. Even the great characters in the Bible have had suspicious moments of themselves. But what makes them different is that they don't let those doubts dominate their lives. Look at the Moses, a person who has ever flee, once thought that he was not capable, but eventually became the leader of his people to escape from slavery. When the Lord called him through the burnt dust but not burned down, Moses did not immediately agree, but he hesitated. Mr. Veen had enough reasons to refuse. "Who can go to Pharaoh?" he asked. This question is no different from what we often ask ourselves: who can do this? But God does not need a perfect person, he needs a person who is ready. The story of Moses is not only about a great rescue, but also about a man who learns how to believe in something bigger than himself. But Moses is not the only one. Think of David, a shepherd boy with no reputation in his family. When the prophet Samuel came to David's father to find the person who will become the future king of Israel, no one bothered to think of David. He was not even invited to the house, because everyone thought that a shepherd child could not be the choice of God. But God does not see man in the way the world looks. He did not choose based on appearance or status. He chose based on his heart. David may be just an unknown boy, but the Lord saw a king in him. And that is what he does to each of us. Maybe you are not the best, the smartest, richest, but that is not as important as whether you are ready for Him to use or not. We often look at what we lack, but God looks at what we can become. If you are still in doubt, look at Jose, a man who runs away from the mission that the Lord assigns to him. When the Lord told Joshi to go to Ninive to call for the people to repent, he not only refused but also on a ship in the opposite direction. He thought that he could escape from God, but God did not easily give up his plan. A storm occurred, John was thrown into the sea, and a large fish swallowed him into his stomach. 3 days in the dark, Joshua realized that he could not escape from his mission. In the end, he obeyed, and the whole Ninive was saved. What does this show? That no matter how many times you try to flee, if God has a plan for you, He will not give up you. But the most incredible story is Paul's story, a person who once resisted God, persecuted those who believe in Him. If anyone does not deserve to be called the Lord's people, it is Paul. But then one day on the way to Multi-Yoke, he was shown down from the sky, and in that moment he met the Lord. His life completely changed. An enemy of faith has become the most powerful defense of faith. This proves that no one is too far to be saved by the Lord, no one is too damaged to be changed by God. So, what makes these people become great? Not they are perfect. Not that they have never made mistakes. It is that they believe and follow the guidance of the Lord. You might think that you are not able to afford, but that is not as important as whether you are ready for Him to use. What are you born for? Have you ever wondered if you are really born for? Is it just to go to work, earn money, live through the day and die like many others? Or is there a bigger purpose waiting for you to explore? The Bible clearly states that the Lord has planned each person right before they were born. Because I know the plan I have for you, the plan for you to be prosperous, not to suffer the tribulation, the plan for you to have the future and hope. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. That means no one in this world is meaningless. But why so many people still feel lost, not knowing what to do with life? Perhaps the problem is not that God has no plan for you, but you have never really stopped to listen to Him. A lot of people lived all their lives to run after the expectations of others and never asked God, "What do you want me to do?" Moses also thought that he was not good enough, that he made too many mistakes so that God could use him. But what makes the difference is not his ability, but his obedience. When God called, Moses may have fled again. But instead, he chose to put faith in the Lord and walked even though he did not have all the answers. If you feel that you haven't found the purpose of life, remember that God does not require you to understand everything immediately. He only needs you to listen and step along with His guidance. The important thing is not how much you have talent or experience, but you are willing to use God. Collect my way to Jehovah, trust in you, He will do it. Psalm 37 verse 5. Do not think you must have all the answers right now. Do not think that you must be perfect for God to use. God does not need a perfect person. He needs someone ready. When you put your faith in Him, you will see things that seem to be impossible. That means that even if you have failed in the past, even though you think you're not good enough, not strong enough, God can still use you to do great things. But the question is, do you dare to believe? Are you ready to follow the Lord's plan? Or will you continue to let fear and suspicion of keeping you? If there is one thing that the Bible has proved over and over again, then God can use anyone. Even though he was a man like Moses, a shepherd boy like David, a persecution like Paul. What about you? Will you choose to step into the purpose you are created to do? Or will life pass without ever really living according to what God has set for you? You don't have to have all the answers. You just need to know one thing, God say, "I will be with you." If you're waiting for the perfect time to start walking in faith, know that the perfect time never comes. The best time to trust God and step into your purpose is right now. You are not a mistake. You are not worthless. You have a purpose, and God knew it before you were born. So, are you ready to say yes to His plan? Take a moment to reflect on your life. Your time on this earth is limited. How are you living it? Are you using each moment to do something meaningful, to move closer to the purpose God has for you? Or are you wasting your time, letting worries, fears, and worldly standards control you? Don't wait until it's too late. Hear God's call today. Trust in His love, because He has never stopped loving you. Dear God, thank you for creating me in your image, for having a plan for me even before I was born. I ask you to help me see my purpose, to help me overcome my doubts and fears, and to walk in the calling you have given me. Please open my heart to listen to your voice, and guide me each day, so that I no longer live in confusion, but walk in your light and love. If this story touches your heart, take a moment to reflect and pray. Let God work in your life. And if you find this message meaningful, please share it with those around you. Don't forget to support the channel so that we can continue to spread God's love to more people. Listen to His words every day, to become better, to live a life that is not wasted, but meaningful in His plan.